A very good morning to all the students of class 9th. This is lesson 5 from your book Moments, The Happy Prince. Before we start this lesson, let's read the COVID appropriate behavior. COVID-19 appropriate behavior. Students, there are 3 things you need to keep in your mind while moving out of your house. Number 1, wearing mask. Wearing mask is mandatory and you should not forget to wear a mask when you move out of your house. It's one of the most important preventive measure you can take. Second is maintaining social distancing of 6 feet. When you are going out anywhere, make sure that you are standing away from others from 6 feet. At least 6 feet you are away from the others. Third is hand hygiene. Always carrying a sanitizer with you when you are going out, and after coming back to home, before the entry, just make sure that you have a hand wash outside there. You can wash your hands and then enter inside. So students, these are the 3 things. If you adapt in your daily life, then there will be no harm to your family and of course to yourself. So I hope that you will follow these and have a good healthy life. Happy Prince. The Happy Prince was a beautiful statue. He was covered with gold. He had sapphires for eyes and a ruby in his sword. Why did he want to part with all the gold that he had and his precious stones? So this lesson, The Happy Prince, starts with an introduction that there was a statue of a happy prince, and the statue was covered with beautiful gold, rubies, sapphires. But he had to part with all those beautiful stones. Why? Why he had to part with it? Let's see. High above the city on a tall column stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold for eyes. He had 2 bright sapphires and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. So as you can see in the picture, this is the statue of a happy prince where he's covered all the way from top to bottom is covered with golden leaves. In his sword you can see a small red ruby. And then in his eyes he has 2 bright sapphires, and these stones are really costly. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind and then he decided to go to Egypt too. So one day what happened, there was a little swallow who flew over the city. His friends had already left the place 6 weeks before and he was the only one who was left behind. He also decided to follow his friends and go to Egypt. But he flew all the night. He was really tired when he arrived at the city. He decided to stay that night in the city to take the rest, and he started thinking where to stay that particular night. He at last saw this beautiful statue. He thought that this can be a better place for him to spend the night. I will put up there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. So he alighted just between the feet of the Happy Prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked around, and he prepared to go to sleep. So he decided to spend his night here between the 2 feet of the Happy Prince. He found himself a lovely golden bedroom, and when he looked around, he found it lovely to sleep that night. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. He decided to sleep between the two legs of the Happy Prince statue, and as soon as he tried to sleep, suddenly a drop of water fell on him. He found it really curious. What a curious thing, he said. He looked around, he found nothing. Then he looked towards the clouds. There were no clouds. All the stars were twinkling. It was all clear and bright. No clouds at all. Yet he thought, it is raining. How come it's possible? Then another drop fell. Now this led him to become more curious about where this tiny drop of water coming from. He kept on looking here and there, and at last he saw the face of the Happy Prince. The eyes of the Happy Prince were filled with tears and were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. He then thought that why not to leave this place, because this Happy Prince, the statue of the Happy Prince, cannot save him from the rain. Then what's the use of staying here? As soon as he started to fly, he looked at the face of the Happy Prince. He saw that the Happy Prince's eyes is filled with tears. He's filled with sadness. Similarly, when Swallow looked at the Happy Prince, he also became sad. "Who are you?" he said. The Happy Prince, the statue of the Happy Prince, spoke and said, "I am the Happy Prince." "Then why are you weeping? Your name is Happy Prince. You're happy. Then why are you weeping? What is the reason? You have quite drenched me." When I was alive, the Happy Prince told him that when he was alive and had a human heart, he did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace, where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the Happy Prince, and happy indeed I was. So I lived, and so I died. So he told the little swallow that he is the Happy Prince. When he was alive, he did not know what sorrow is, what tears are. And he said then when he was alive, he lived in the palace. There was everything for him. His courtiers used to call him Happy Prince, and he was happy, of course, that time. But after his death, he says that after I died, they all set me here so high that he can see the ugliness and all the misery of his city. He says that though his heart is made up of lead, still he weeps. Still his heart is filled with sadness, with the sufferings of the people of his city. The little swallow was shocked and asked, "What? Is he not solid gold?" He was too polite to make any personal remarks. Now, the Happy Prince shared with the little swallow what he saw for the past many years, just on a tall column, what he saw from there. He says that there is a poor house in a little street. One of the windows is open, and through that window I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands all pricked by the needle, because she is a seamstress who stitches clothes. She is embroidering flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water. So he is crying, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened on this pedestal and I cannot move." So the Happy Prince told the little swallow that at first what he is looking is a woman who is a seamstress. All her hands is pricked with needles. He can also see the little boy of the seamstress who is lying on a bed and he is having a high fever. The Happy Prince couldn't bear the pain of the little child because he's asking for the oranges, and the woman, the seamstress, could not afford to buy him anything other than the river water. So what the happy prince want the little swallow to do is he want the little swallow to take out his ruby from this sword hilt and give it to the seamstress so that she can use it for the expenses of his of her daughter, of her son's treatment, and for other things that he requires. I am waited for in Egypt, said the swallow. My friends are flying up and down the Nile and talking to the large lotus flowers. Soon they will go to sleep. He told the little swallow, shared his own problem to the happy prince, that he is going to the Egypt. His friends are waiting in for him there, and he needs to go as soon as possible. The prince asked the little swallow to stay with him for that night and be his messenger. He requested the little swallow as the boy is very thirsty and the mother is sad. The little swallow thought a little and told that I don't think I like boys, answered the swallow. I want to go to Egypt. He wanted to go to Egypt, so he told the prince. But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry. It is very cold here, he said. But he agreed to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. The happy prince insisted the little swallow. He requested the little swallow to please stay that night and be his messenger for that night only. Thank you, little swallow, said the prince. So finally, the little swallow agreed. The little swallow picked up the great ruby from the prince's sword, flew with it to the little street. He passed the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. The little swallow heard her say that she hopes that her dress will be ready for the state ball. She has ordered flowers to be embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so lazy. He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the mast of the ships. At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed and the mother had fallen asleep. So when the little swallow reached there, he saw that the boy still was in high fever, and the woman, the seamstress, had almost slept on the table while while embroidering the flowers on the gown. In he hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool I feel, said the boy. I must be getting better, and he sank into a delicious slumber. So the little swallow reached there and put that ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. He even fanned the boy's forehead with his wings, to which the boy felt really cool with the flapping up of the wings of the little swallow. He in fact said that he is feeling better, and he sank into the delicious sleep, delicious slumber. He was in deep sleep and he was actually loving it. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold. So the little swallow reached back to the happy prince and told the incident, told everything what had happened, how he gave the ruby and everything. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt. So the little swallow was ready to go to the Egypt that night. After finishing up his first task given by the happy prince, he was ready to go back to Egypt with his friends, for meeting his friends and finally going with them. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on top of the church steeple. When the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince. He finally wanted to bid goodbye to the happy prince because the time has arrived. After spending one single night the other day also with the happy prince by performing one of the good deeds that he had never done before, he was happy and he was ready to go back to the Egypt with his to meet his friends. Have you any commissions for Egypt? He cried. I am just starting. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you stay with me one night longer? So the happy prince still couldn't bear the pain and the sufferings of his own people in the city and requested the little swallow to stay one more day with him. I am waited for in Egypt. Swallow, swallow, little swallow. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. The happy prince continued saying that he can actually see a young man in a garret. A garret is a small, uncomfortable room at the top of a home, and he's kind of leaning over a desk covered with papers. And in the glass by his side, there is a bunch of withered violets. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate. And he has a large and dreamy eyes. He's trying to finish a play for the director of the theater, but he is too cold to write anymore. There is no fire in the grate, and hunger has made him faint. So he saw another man. He saw a man. He is writing something for the director of the theater, and it is too cold. The season is too cold and there is no fire at his place. There's no fire in the grate, and the playwright is feeling really cold, and the play is really important to write, and it's becoming really difficult for him to write in this cold weather. So the little swallow requested the happy prince to go there and help this person to take the ruby from his sword tilt and help this playwright. I will wait with you one night longer. And the swallow, who really had a good heart, he asked if he should take another ruby to the young playwright. Alas, I have no ruby now. My eyes are all that I have left. They are made of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago. He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of them and take it to the playwright. So, when the little swallow asked for permission from the happy prince to take ruby again for this playwright, they found that there is no ruby. Ruby was already given to seamstress. Now he had two eyes made with sapphire stones. So he requested the little swallow to take one of his eyes and give it to the playwright. The little swallow was really hesitant to pluck out the eye because it will make the statue of the happy prince blind. He told that he will sell the sapphire to the jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play. Dear prince, said the swallow, I cannot do that. And the little swallow began to weep. He did not want to make the happy prince blind. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. The happy prince just wanted to make the people of his city happy and fulfill all their dreams and desires, fulfill their wishes, and in fact, especially the basic needs. So the happy prince told the little swallow to do what he is commanding him. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away. Was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. Through this he darted and came into the room. The young man had his head buried in his hands, so he did not hear the flutter of the bird's wings. And when he looked up, he found the beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violets. So, The little swallow did as per the command given by the happy prince. He managed to go inside because there was a hole in the roof. He darted, he came inside the room. The young man had his head buried in his hands. He was like very sleepy, and the little bird, the little swallow, he the little swallow left that sapphire on the withered violets. I am beginning to be appreciated, he cried. This is from some great admirer. Now I can finish my play, and he looked quite happy. So, when the playwright got up from his sleep, he was very happy to see the sapphire. He, in fact, thought that he is kind of being appreciated by people. This is a great admirer that somebody had given him this sapphire, he thought. And then he looked quite happy, and he told to himself that I can finish my play. He can finish up his play quickly now because he has this sapphire. He will be able to arrange money and will bring woods for him to keep him warm. So this was the second good deed that was performed by the little swallow as per the command given by the happy prince. He stayed another night there in this cold and helped the happy prince.